Hello, everybody. It's Thursday night. This is the Connection Central strand of the Smart Connected podcast, and I'm delighted to welcome Kate Strong. Hello, Kate.
Hi, pleased to meet you, and thank you for inviting me here.
You're very welcome. Now, Kate's a very exciting person for our guest tonight. She's a leadership coach. She's a world champion triathlete, a TEDx speaker and a podcast host. And so we have been having an amazing chat prior to tonight, and we're going to just carry on talking, aren't we, Kate? You've got so many interesting things that I know everybody is going to be very excited and interested to hear about. So let's just kick off, Kate. You come from Wales, don't you?
Yeah, I was born and bred in Wales till about 18 till I left.
Yes. Okay. And so how did you go from a small town in Wales to become a world champion, a triathlete? And what was the defining moment that made you decide that you were going to step outside your comfort zone and just achieve something as amazing as that?
Thank you. Wow, how long have you got? I wouldn't say I was born a world champion. I don't think any of us are. And as we said offline, I didn't. Throughout my years, living in Wales, I didn't have anything really to stand up for. I lived quite a comfortable life. My parents looked after me, and I was sent to university, so everything was pretty ticking along fine for what society expects from us. Mm-hmm. The reason I suppose I stepped up to be that world champion, though I didn't know in that moment when I made that decision I would end up being number one in the world, was in 2012, when 6 days before my wedding with my partner of 9 years, he left me. He didn't just leave me. We were living in Australia at the time, and we owned a couple of properties. We also ran a business together. So he left me with everything to run for myself. And standing alone in Australia when all my family and friends had left for our non-wedding, it was in that moment of isolation and despair, because I'm not the girl you see today. So he, through those 9 years, he'd actually slowly put elements of doubt in me about me not being good enough, not being pretty enough, not being intellectual enough, not being able to cope by myself. Mm-hmm. And standing there, borderline struggling with life, I just decided today is the only day I have, and also today is the youngest day I'll be. So I have to start living for myself. And I started to rack my brains thinking about what can I do for me, not for work, not for the debt, not for my parents, but just for myself. And I remembered 10 years prior to that, I wanted to do triathlon. And so I decided to aim for being an Ironman, which is quite, the toughest triathlon you can do. It's 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike ride, followed by lazy marathon.
Wow.
So, for me, it was just impossible to conceive, but I needed something big to counteract the big negativity I had in my life. And so I just said to my friends, I want to do triathlon. I want to be an Ironman. I don't know how good I can be. So to find out my level, I need to aim for number one. So in order to be my best, I've got to aim to be the best. And so I just started to run. I could barely run a mile. I was hideously out of breath. My legs would burn. I'd feel phlegm burning my throat as well as I started to run. Over time, I got to a level where I could, compete at a certain level. And that's what sort of drew me to being a world champion, was just this desire to recapture my life, if you want, to actually do something for me and just see how far I could go without the limitations of that negative chitter-chatter from other people, but also within my own head as well.
That is really, really amazing. And the thing is, you're still at it today, Kate, aren't you? You've got another challenge that you're working on at the moment that's even more exciting, if that's possible. Would you like to tell everybody about that?
Yeah, with pleasure. I mean, I came up with these ideas and I have no idea where they come from. And when I say it, I then look back and go, Kate, next time, check these distances, check the craziness before you actually publicly announce it. In 2 years' time, I'll be competing in the world's toughest road race, which is 3,000 miles coast to coast of America. I'm hoping to finish it in about 8 days' time, in 8 days. And then 2 months after that, I will be swimming the English Channel. And it wouldn't be a true triathletes competition if I didn't add a third element. So 4 months after that, I will be attempting to summit Everest. So no one in the world has ever done all 3. So it would be an actual world's first, and great also for the world's first to be a female.
That's really incredible. Kate, have you got a documentary team following you? Because I think you really deserve it.
Thank you. Yeah, I have actually teamed up with a uni friend of mine. We're shooting a documentary about it. So
that is really exciting. Yeah. That is amazing. And please, can I come to the premiere? Yeah, that sounds great. So over all that time, Kate, of really pushing yourself against your limits, and as you said, stepping outside of your comfort zone and doing something extraordinary, what have you learned about yourself and about other people as well?
Wow. What I've learned is if I feed the fear, I'll do nothing. I'm never going to not feel afraid. Every morning, like this morning, I was on the bicycle for 5 hours. I didn't want to do it. I need every day to stop, feeding the small play. And I'm not diminishing any size of life is great, but I don't want to, feeding my fears and feeding my feelings. It's just committing to something bigger. We've all heard the cliche of, step outside your comfort zone, but we forget that outside of our comfort zone, it's very uncomfortable. So what I greatly learn is just embrace that most days I don't want to do what I'm doing, that I know that 6 months later, I will be so grateful for the moments of today when I, completed those documents I didn't want to write, or phoned those potential clients I didn't want to call, or got on that bicycle to do that extra hour when I really didn't feel like it as well. So that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned that has really helped in all areas of my life, not just in that sporting arena. That's
really, really amazing. And of course, that is where leadership in business is. It is about winning. Business is like, it's competitive. It's a competitive arena. There are winners and losers, aren't there? And you do have to do a lot of things that other people, well, certainly as an entrepreneur, that a lot of people wouldn't do because they find it too hard. The prospect doesn't appeal to them. They want to have an easy life or a comfortable life. So what would you say to give our listeners and our viewers a little bit of comfort if their lives have been quite hard recently? Because we're in the middle of lockdown, aren't we? I mean, it still hasn't really lifted. Everything's very uncertain, and a lot of people have been struggling. So what message would you give them, Kate?
Yeah, and it's really hard for all of us to live in this uncertainty. We don't know if lockdown's coming again. We have no idea the rules for next week, let alone next year. So it's really hard to plan for the future when tomorrow is so uncertain.
Yes.
And I see some businesses thriving and others struggling, and it's sometimes nothing to do with the people or the company. It's just the way the world's sort of the cards fell. So I mean, the words of advice I'd give is to bring some gratitude into our lives. I know in our dark moments, and this is coming from personal experience, we can't see why we should be grateful because all we're seeing are the bills mounting up and the income reducing. But there's got to be something, if only for waking up in the morning. If we start adding that element of gratitude into our days, it does help soften those pains. Because when we're in a stressed environment, our potentiality for the what if thinking, the things that actually create the solutions, shrink down. We only see that tunnel vision of fear. So by introducing gratitude, we're opening up more possibilities of us being innovative and finding alternate ways. So, I always keep a gratitude journal. Every night I write down 3 things I'm grateful for. I really notice that helping me when I feel the spiral occurring, when I hear the negative chatter starting, I can pull myself out quicker. It doesn't stop the voices, but at least it stops the fall and keeps me there less times. I can get back into action to really create what I need to.
Yes, and I think what's interesting about that is if we set ourselves ambitious targets, we were talking about this before we came on, weren't we? We are obviously exposing ourselves to those uncomfortable feelings because we are going to be afraid. We are going to bump up against our own perfectionism. And of course, there's the fear of missing out and looking over our shoulder and seeing what other people are doing. And there's so many uncomfortable feelings that come up when you start set a target and actually start moving towards it. And a lot of people, they just give up at that point, don't they, Kate? So this is a very interesting topic. So how do you actually, as a sporting champion, how do you let go of that perfectionism? Because, you know, being a world champion, it's all about being the best, isn't it? So is that a trap as well?
Most definitely. And, you know, we talked about this offline earlier as well. And I'm really happy to share about the dark days as well, because once I was world champion, where do you go? Once you're number one in the world, I found myself on a pedestal, and I realized I put myself there, and it was quite lonely.
Mm-hmm.
I felt I couldn't ask for help. I couldn't express my vulnerability. I couldn't express that I was nervous about the next race because everyone, oh, you're a champion, forget about it. And it was hard. And even if we're not world champions, because I still experience it today, and I'm not that world record holder yet, but, you know, it's about being open to criticism. It's about being judged, not just by ourselves, but sometimes our nearest and dearest. So for me, it's about having a really strong why, knowing in my heart my motivation. And we know whether we're doing it from a place of love and compassion and service, or adding value to ourselves and the world, or if there is a little bit of, you know, negativity that's motivating us, the screw you kind of attitude. So I do my best to know that I'm doing it for the right reasons. And if for whatever reason I offend someone, it's not inevitable. I don't want to say that, you know, tough, suck it up sort of attitude, but we can't please everyone. You know, we all have different flavors and tastes. Some people like the mountains, some people like the beach. We need to just get used to that word no, and not add the stories or the energy behind it. No does not mean I'm a failure. No just means that person has said no as easily as they would say yes. So it's a lot of work. It's easy to say, but it's a lot of work disconnecting from the meanings behind that. So behind the physical that I do, I also make sure I do as much mental work as possible as well, which is cleaning up my past. I have a mantra of wanting to live a Teflon life, which means if you said something to me, I wouldn't be triggered by it. I wouldn't get all offended and nervous or hold myself back. So I'm always sort of delving into myself and introspection to make sure that whatever someone says, however someone reacts, I just listen to it for that first time, and I don't have 20 or 30 past experiences that compound and make that one event or that one word much bigger than it should be. So I hope that answers your question, but
yeah, that's really, really interesting, because I think we often all have a running dialogue that's going on in our heads, and I sometimes catch myself doing this as well, which is really, it's the story that we're telling ourselves. And it's just a human nature to do that. So we tell ourselves stories all the time about what other people's intentions are, or what their thoughts are about us, and about what they think about us. And it's just human nature. And I think when you are conscious of the fact that, wait a minute, this is just me telling myself a story, and the chances are that this isn't true. And to be honest, if I'm going to entertain myself with a story, I may as well just entertain myself with a better story, and a story that actually, no, they don't dislike me and think that I'm this, that, or the other. Actually, they think I'm great. Why not? Why not tell yourself that story as well? It's crazy, isn't it, the way our brains work? But sometimes we do need some help from the outside, don't we?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, albeit you see my competitions as solo, I have already a team of 4 or 5 people behind me, and that's going to grow to 20 or 30 people just to get me over the line, so to speak. So yeah, we definitely need people to watch our back, look at our blind spots, and really support us along the way.
Yes, yeah. So let's move on to talking about your leadership work, Kate. So what's your typical client? Do you work one-to-one, or do you work in groups, or how do you deliver your leadership training?
At the moment, it's one-to-one or in a small group if there are a group of directors that need to move a company forward. And it's very bespoke, because I believe that everyone has different needs. We all have different personalities as well. And it's entirely up to the individual. So I always say, I have no answers. You know better than anyone what your life and what your company needs. My job is to remove the dirt that's stopping you seeing what's within yourself, the block that's preventing you from tapping into your own knowledge. So at the end of our sessions together or our time together, invariably they say, thank you, I don't need you anymore, which is wonderful, because they're now experiencing what they always knew all along, but they just needed me to hold up that mirror for them to see as well. So I've worked with, a variety from tech businesses, from dance studios, as well as startups, as well as 7 or 8 figure turnover companies as well. So I'm very blessed in the diversity, and it definitely keeps me on my toes as well, because I make sure that I'm always not one step ahead, but I'm always evolving to make sure I'm the best person who turns up for them at the right time as well.
Yes, I understand that. So what would you say is the most common issue that you see time and time again? Is there one, or is there a set of issues?
The most common is that they think they need external help or advice. They don't know what to do. And 9 times out of 10, they know exactly what they need to do, but potentially are asking for permission, potentially looking for someone else's point of view, but they know intrinsically what the right thing to do as well. So for me, it's about just giving them permission and space to believe themselves. I mean, there are other examples as well, but that seems to be the biggest point for me, that I very rarely do anything dramatic or amazing. It's purely just letting them have what they need to see within themselves and move forward with that.
Excellent. So we've got some comments coming through, Kate. So liking the discussion around narrative. Great. Yeah, that's lovely. Somebody says, can you help me with my dance career? So, Kate, you've got somebody who's very serious about dance that wants a little bit of impromptu coaching from you. What would you say to somebody that wants to be a world champion, a world-beating dancer? I don't know what kind of dance it is. You can let us know. But what would you say? Advice?
The simplest thing is to dance. I've secured recently Trek as a sponsor for cycling, which is unheard of for such as I've got 1,500 followers. I'm a nobody in the world of social media, but I turn up every day and I post me cycling, and they like that I do this every day already before they gave me a bike. So for anyone who wants to, as a dancer, what I recommend is post you dancing, post that you love dancing, post the clothes that you want to wear and tag the brands you want to work with and the people that inspire you. And they will notice you because you're already giving before you're asking for receiving. And people just fall in love when they see why you dance, and they'll naturally reward you that way. So that's my advice.
Amazing. So they'll just pick up on your passion, they'll see your passion, and in a way, as you said, if you're already promoting the brands that align with you, then you're giving them clues, aren't you? You're saying, actually, I'm your kind of a person. And so let's move on to a conversation about sponsorship and about brands. Do you have sponsors, Kate? Do you have brands that have aligned with you and
it's very early days for me, so we've really started this campaign 2 months ago, and just like everyone, it's a very tricky time to be asking for sponsors. But Trek have come on board, which is, as I said, wonderful. So they've given me a beautiful bike that I'm able to train on, and we are in negotiations with some other companies as well for 6 figures. So there is support out there. as long as it's matched up with their values. So I'm demonstrating their beliefs, their values, their ethics, and making sure that we're in alignment. So we'll see what happens, but I'm very excited. And as you said, I've got the documentary. I'm making sure there's as much value out there as possible for them to see why I'm an asset, not an Oliver Twist.
That's right. So how do you promote yourself then, Kate? Do you use any particular social platforms any more than any other, or do you generally, I know obviously you've been a TEDx speaker, so you've done some video stuff. So have you got a favourite platform, a favourite way of actually promoting yourself and getting the message out?
I use LinkedIn a lot, which is surprising because a lot of people don't think of that as sports. But if you think about the companies to be affiliated with, they're predominantly on LinkedIn. But I also use Instagram because for me, it's quite important to be visual.
Yeah.
But I'm also 41, so I hear TikTok is one of the biggest platforms to be on. I can barely do YouTube, so I'm not going to get involved in TikTok. So that might be something interesting for someone else.
I think TikTok is moving away from teenagers. That's what I hear, because in my circles, people do talk about TikTok a lot. And I think it's, for me, what I hear, I don't use TikTok myself because I just can't think of anything more embarrassing than kind of going on there. But, well, it's really my children. They just, they don't want to see me on TikTok. They really don't. But I hear that, you know, TikTok and Instagram stories, they're not really that different. They're all about entertainment, really, aren't they? And just kind of short bursts of visual creativity, really. So yeah, I think it's a good platform, and I think people are adopting it increasingly if they have a visual brand, and particularly a performance related brand. So I'm sure that you could do some really exciting stuff with some cool edits on there, so don't be too put off. Yeah. Okay, so another question I wanted to ask you, Kate, is you talk quite a lot about ethics and sustainability. And of course, that is a very important, both of those are important issues. But because my audience are mostly startups, solopreneurs and small business owners, what does sustainability mean in the context of a small business?
Well, first and foremost, I want to say sustainability means profitability, because if we're not making money, the company won't exist, and that's not sustainable. So it's about owning the right or the ability to earn money and make a profit at the end of the day. So for me, that's definitely has to be the bedrock. And the more we earn, guess what? It magnifies our message, and the more we can give. So that's very important. But for me, it's all, you know, there's a triple bottom line. So we talk about for profit, for people, as well as for planet. And for solopreneurs, it could be as simple as making sure that everyone within the organization earns a minimum certain figure, or the difference between the highest and the lowest is a certain ratio. And for the environment, how about cycling to work? I mean, we all work from home now, which is quite wonderful. But is there a way to move more offline meetings to online? And so yeah, for solopreneurs, it doesn't have to be a huge shift in investing in large infrastructure and selling our cars and just getting, you know, eco electric vehicles. But it's just about making that one shift every day and making sure that the community, the people we work with and for, our supply chain as well, are all honouring a certain balance, especially for individuals. So something I'm getting very passionate about at the moment is equality. So all of my staff, whether they work in the Philippines or the UK, are all on the basics, the same salary. So I don't differentiate between the rich countries and the poor countries. I make sure everyone's paid the same. So
Kate, I wanted to ask you about your sporting heroes and whether you have anybody in particular that you look up to or you use as a role model, either in sport or in business.
That's a great question. I have been asked this before. And in honesty, that I admire, there isn't anyone I admire to the point of they're a role model to me. I started believing that every time I meet someone, it's my responsibility to find gold in that conversation. Because
Yes.
every day, be them a mother, be them a beggar, be them a CEO, be them a world champion, we've all had 24 hours in one day and experienced things that I will never experience. So for me, my role model is every person I meet. And I just hear that gold in the conversations while we're interacting.
Oh, that's really nice. So what inspiring people have you met recently, and what have they said to you that's really moved you?
I spoke to a British-born Jamaican who was blind from birth, pretty much, and he struggled a lot with adversity throughout his entire life. Also, he was born into a single mother family as well, and he really wanted to be a blind footballer and struggled so much to get on the English football team. And he just had a can-do attitude. He worked every single day to accomplish that. And what he feeds is his minority mindset. Instead of seeing, he came from Wolverhampton, a poor socioeconomic family, not having a father figure, not being able to see, he saw them instead of as a reason why he couldn't, as a reason why he should. So his minority mindset actually drove him to compete in not one but two Paralympic Games for England, and one of the top gold scorers as well. So that really pushed me hard. His name's Darren Harris.
Okay.
So I really loved his can-do attitude, looking at every reason why we should rather than all the reasons why we couldn't.
I love that. I do remember once I was watching a documentary about these children that lived on rubbish dumps, and I think it might have been in South America, it might have been in Africa, I can't remember where, but they were scavenging on these rubbish dumps, and that was basically how they found food. They wouldn't eat if they didn't scavenge on the rubbish dumps. And they were happy and smiling. Now, I mean, I'm not saying they had happy lives, but there was one of them that was talking about his favorite football team, which was Liverpool, and he was beaming like from ear to ear. And I was just so moved. I thought, you know what, if you can find a smile living with that adversity, that is a very powerful lesson for all of us, isn't it, Kate?
Yeah, definitely. My partner was made redundant a few months ago at the start of lockdown, and that obviously changed our dynamic quite a lot, and we're quite a new relationship as well. And we were struggling with the scarcity mindset of, oh gosh, what if we lose this? What if we lose that? And one day I just sat down and said, let's play a game. So I just said, imagine we come home from an evening meal and everything is burnt to the ground. We know we had a meal with all our friends and family, so no one was hurt, but everything we owned was burnt. How do you feel now? He's like, relieved. So I went, well, we should be relieved today because we still have our stuff.
Yeah.
So I play regularly the Imagine the House is Burning Down game to add that relief and gratitude back into my life as well. So maybe we could just do that regularly, as not actually, but pretend, set our house on fire in our minds and see how we feel afterwards.
Well, that's right. If everything went, and I think in the developed world, living where we do, I think we all have such a tendency, don't we, to compare ourselves to others. I think particularly materially. It's a very, very materially competitive world, and I think a lot of the time we've actually gone away from those spiritual values that were, perhaps even our parents' generation grew up with, and I think we do need to pull back from that at time from time to time and actually remind ourselves about what really matters, because what really matters to me is the impact that I make on other people, because we can't take any of the stuff with us, can we?
No, exactly. And how can you press the smile on your children's face? And it wouldn't be the fast car that puts the smile on their face. It's the connection, it's the interaction, it's the joy. So yeah, by focusing on the happiness, on the impact on others, that's what's important. Not, as you said, having the next big house or keeping up with the Joneses, as we usually call it.
Mm-hmm. So you talk about philanthropy, Kate. So what is it that you are passionate about in terms of causes and giving back yourself?
Yeah, I love, like, as I said, after university, because I did 5 years, so I've got a double master's in engineering, but that was to please my parents. So once they were satisfied, I then said, phew, I can now live my own life. So I went traveling around Latin America. So something I love is empowering. I do give to charities, but I'd love to have a world where no charities were needed, because everyone's just doing the right thing. So I find as much possibility as possible to empower people rather than just, giving my bit every month. So I started helping them create micro businesses, from teaching kids how to freeze bananas to make popsicles to sell them to hungry tourists, or letting a woman know that how she weaves her coats, she can also teach tourists how to make headscarves. So I have a legacy, and these cost nothing for me, and it didn't cost anything for them either. But charities or causes that I'm working at the moment are equality, bringing more awareness about, especially in cycling. If we look online, we see a lot of men cycling, but where are the women? There's a minimum wage for professional male cyclists, but not female. This isn't fair. And then if we add yes, yeah, it's not a compulsory status for professional female sports. We still need a job if we want to be a pro cyclist.
Really?
Yeah.
That's extraordinary, isn't it? I don't see how they can get away with that. How can you justify something like that? That's blatant discrimination, isn't it? I mean, really?
Well, there was a great movie. I can't remember what it's called. I'll find out before the end of this documentary. But they interviewed the the International Cycling Federation CEO, and this is in 2011. So I hope he's caught up. But he said, "We'd love to sponsor them, but they're not good enough yet." And the response was, "Well, you need to invest in them, and that's why, because they're not earning the money to be able to be better." So it's a catch-22. But yes, I'm really passionate, as you can hear, about just generating opportunities. I'm not saying that all women want to be pro cyclists, but at least have equal playing fields, and also for different socioeconomic backgrounds. I've already said I'm very privileged that I had a bicycle when I was growing up, so I knew what a bike was. There are communities, even in Wales and the UK, who have never ridden a bike. So why on earth would they even consider doing a cycle?
Wow, I mean, that's really amazing, actually, to have whole communities that have not been brought up to ride a bike. I have never, living in the southeast, I don't think I've ever seen that. Although I'm sure it's there. If you went into parts of London or some of the more deprived areas around London, I'm sure you would see that. But to me, just riding a bike is just such a sort of rite of passage for any child. But you forget, don't you?
Yeah. And I remember going camping in fields when I was younger. But again, if your parents who lived in an urban metropolis and their parents lived in an urban building, they never taught their children what to expect when going to nature. So they're wearing the wrong clothes. Their experience is terrible. So they don't like nature anymore. But that isn't because they don't like nature. It's because they were wearing jeans and it was raining, and it obviously is a horrible experience. So I'm doing my best to work with teams who are actually educating. They're more, I don't like the word minorities, but they're basically non-white communities, to be able to be exposed to this more and make their own decision. Do they like hiking? Do they want to do this as well? Because they're not represented equally. And it's not because of a lack of need or want, it's because they just haven't got the tools or resources to learn either.
And I mean, maybe it's just it's not in their culture, but I mean, I think in this country, certainly we have such beautiful countryside, and we have so many opportunities to get out there and enjoy nature. And of course, cycling is something where you can just get on your bike and you can, that's it. You can get into nature, you can enjoy it, you can feel the wind in your hair. And I mean, I don't do a lot of cycling myself, but I remember that feeling, and it's a great feeling, isn't it? Getting on a bike.
Yeah, it's freedom, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. So just to talk about cycling a little bit more, Kate, because one of the best documentaries I think I've ever seen was the one about Lance Armstrong and about that doping scandal in cycling. So that was a fascinating documentary. Why why do you think he got in that deep?
Well, I haven't seen his documentary, in honesty, but I have read a few of his books and the books that surround it. I mean, it's a multiple tiered question. I mean, there's a lot of pressure when people are at the top. There's a lot of pressure to keep it up there and maintain it.
Yeah.
And sometimes the expectation is inhumane. It's not fair, and we don't. You touched on this earlier as well. We don't build in that spiritual aspect. Some days our 100% is this big. It's a lot smaller, and other days our 100% is much greater.
Yes.
But for these elite athletes, 100% has to be this big every single time. No bad days, no bad hair days, no bad experience days. You have to turn up switched on every single time. So, maybe they were expecting him to become a machine, and, he started to deliver. And a fact that might interest you is one of the top 5 professions unfortunately, for premature suicide in America is professional football players.
Really?
Because people morph their identity into being that athlete. So what do you do when you retire? You lose part of your identity. Kate, I am a triathlete, but I'm also Kate Strong. I'm also a business owner. I'm also a partner, and there's so much more of us.
Yeah.
So when we get so attached to that one title, and we see it a lot in retirement too, there's a potentiality of losing ourselves as well. So I think Lance also, psychoanalyzing him from far, he was too attached to that title. He couldn't dance as a success without being that winner as well, and it led to him abusing the rules, unfortunately. And I feel for them too, because they'll never get recognized. They might take away his medals, but we don't know that person's name, and they genuinely deserved it those years as well, unfortunately.
And they did work for it, and they did train for it, but of course they only, once they get caught, then they're only ever remembered as being a cheat, which is a shame, isn't it? It really is. But as you said, it's probably all to do with the pressure and that kind of relentless drive to stay at the top. And I think that was very much what it was for him. And of course, what happened is he dragged everybody else down with him because they were all at it. Because he was the leader of the whole team. So he said, well, we all have to do this. We all have to go and get this new blood and do all of that every time we go out and compete. And it's fascinating, really, the psychology of the whole thing. And of course, as you said, there are so many parallels, aren't there, with business, because business is very competitive. We can put ourselves under huge pressure. At times, it can feel like we're doing a marathon, or that like we're going for the world championship. Sometimes we're climbing the mountain. Sometimes it can feel like that. I think particularly in the early stages of building a business. I mean, it gets easier if you make the right decisions, if you stick with it and you're consistent and you keep on showing up and doing the right thing, month after month, year after year, and then it starts to get easy and it starts to build momentum, and you manage to systemize all of those things that you were doing in the early days. But I really take my hat off to every single startup and small business owner who is trying to get something bigger off the ground and actually be their equivalent of a hero or a world champion. Takes a lot, doesn't it, Kate?
It totally does, Jane. And also it's hard to say no to clients as well at the start, even though we know they don't match our values, or we know we're compromising some element of our own ethics by working with them. And it's easy for us to just say, oh, just this one, I'll just work with this company and turn a blind eye, but next one will be more green or more ethical or more sustainable. So it does take a lot of courage to stand true to our values. This is without judgment, because we've all made decisions in the past that we may not do today, but it's about making sure that we stay as close to ourselves as possible, because we're with us 24/7. We're not with those clients every day. We have to live with ourselves. So it's making those decisions and those tough calls to say no in the face of scarcity, in the face of that fear and losing out potentially. That's how we see it sometimes as well.
Definitely. So Kate, tell us how we can get hold of you? If any of our viewers or our listeners want to get in touch, what's the best way to do that?
I'm very social, so my website is katestrong.co. That's it, no M, no .uk. And I'm on LinkedIn as Kate Strong, Facebook. I've got my own YouTube channel and a podcast as well called Strong Voice.
Okay, that's great. Well, Kate, I just wanted to thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been an absolutely amazing interview, a fantastic discussion on sportsmanship and world championship and leadership and all of those topics that are just so interesting. So thank you very, very much for joining us tonight, and we'll look forward to seeing your progress.
Thank you so much, Jane. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. And yeah, definitely I'll keep you updated and also to hear about yourself as well.
Amazing. All right then. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.